Even if Russia seems to have the upper hand in Ukraine's invasion, do you know what the realities on the ground are? Thinking that Russia might be on its back foot seems a silly thought, and this is how Russia has conditioned everyone. Russia may appear to dominate the region, but internally, it is going through its hardest time. This is the reason why Russia chose to invade and make its last move before it loses all its powers. This is something Russia has been trying to keep a secret since World War I, but now the realities have been revealed. And these realities are quite grave, especially for Russia, which is trying to invade another country now in the 21st century. Therefore, what is Russia actually trying to hide from the rest of the world? How is it dying internally, and what could it mean for the world that is being shaped at this very moment? This is what we are going to uncover in today's video. Russia is coping with an issue that most of the world doesn't know about: decrease in its population. Even if Russia is the largest country on the planet, in terms of the area it occupies, its population has decreased to a precarious level. To rule over such a large country, it needs more men in the military, but the wars which it has endured has cut the population in half. This all goes back to World War I, when the Russian military was directed to fight battles, and it cost Russia a great number of lives. Most of the casualties were young soldiers who had wives back at home. Thus, World War I took Russia to the brink of losing it all. It was still recovering from the harms of the war when World War II began, and Russia again had to fight. Again, thousands and thousands of soldiers lost their lives, leaving Russia with a population many times less than before. People were the assets that Russia was losing in every war, and this created a never-ending plethora of problems inside the country. A country that is so large that it needs many men to rule effectively was losing those valuable men. It meant the loss of territory if any countries tried to invade. The birth rate was going down, and there weren't enough Russians to repopulate the country. Then came the year when the Soviet Union fell. At that time, Russia's birth rate had halved, but the death rate had doubled. This might not seem like a big issue in countries like China or India, or the United States, where there is a population of tens of millions. But in a country that is the largest and whose existence depends upon the men it has, it is a survival issue. According to reports, Russia cannot repopulate with this birth rate, even in the upcoming 30 years. This means that in this century, Russia may vanish as a nation and as an ethnicity. This is where the decreasing population finds its ties with Ukraine's invasion. At this very moment, Putin and his administration know that if they don't invade Ukraine right now, they won't be able to do so in the future. The reason for that is they won't have the capacity and the power to do so. With manpower deteriorating, invading a country in the 21st century for Russia is perhaps impossible. However, the population isn't the only trigger that has made Russia make its last move. Russia is going through the gravest times in centuries of its history, and the reason behind it is its education system has collapsed. Unlike most of the countries, Russia uses an apprenticeship system. This system doesn't let anyone start their jobs even if they have degrees. They must go through a period of 4 to 5 years of practical training in that profession before they can start working. This was done so that the educated class would know how to precisely do their jobs. When they are under the supervision of someone who is already doing that job, they will learn more. But this didn't turn out to be as it was expected. Since 1985, Russia's industries have slowed their production, not deliberately, but rather because they don't have any other option. The working class isn't that skilled, which is affecting the national income and the country as a whole. This dates back to 1985, when the Russian government ceased investing in technical education. Rather, it invested in ideological education. The generation coming from 1985 and onward knows its history and ideology, but it doesn't know the technical work. It doesn't have the skills to produce effectively and compete with the rest of the world. The ones who did receive education after 1985 knew the ideologies that were also orchestrated by the Russian government. This is the very reason why today's Russian population feels Ukraine's invasion is perfectly normal, since they have been conditioned for that. This proves the hypothesis that the Russian generation after 1985 has not been equipped with those skills needed in today's world. There were a few who did get the technical education in one way or another, but they created another bubble for Russia. About 2 million Russians migrated to the West to find better living options since they could not find them in Russia. Also, the ones who are still living in Russia and have the skills are perhaps at the stage to find jobs in other countries. They are also planning to leave Russia as well. The results become dire here. Russia is amassing unskilled people, while the skilled people are leaving the country. These skilled people are actually the driving force that is keeping Russia at the surface. These are the technicians and the statesmen, without whom Russia had to struggle for survival. The educational collapse takes its shots to the military as well, which is a matter of life and death for Russia. This means that the Russian soldiers and even the commanders are not equipped with the things needed to dominate on the battlefield. The Russian commanders aren't like the commanders of countries like the United States or China. They don't get to know about the latest nuclear technology they have. They don't go back to training centers to reinforce their intellectual level and military understanding. And this can be seen in the Russian army today. The way they are invading Ukraine and coping with the situation seems unskilled. Not a single military in the world would have a strategy like the Russian army has, and it appears that Russia has no strategy at all. This takes us back to the generation before 1985, who did get a complete education and know how to lead. This is actual leadership. People who had the idea about what was going on and how things can be made normal once again. Back in 1982, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, the KGB and its members took over the government. KGB was the main security agency for the Soviet Union. People like Mikhail Gorbachev and Putin himself were its members. This is where things become obvious. The members of the KGB were the class that was most educated and knew everything about Russia. This class was the only leadership under which Russia could survive and continue to grow. Since Putin was also one of its agents, he knows every precise little detail about the country and how he has to manage everything. Putin, plus other members of the KGB, are the only ones who can be a stable leadership for Russia. And these members are not in the millions. Rather, they are only 150 in number. What it really means is the whole of Russia's future is in the hands of the elite political leaders that cannot be more than 150 members. And every time one of them dies due to illness or accident, Russia loses an asset that is irreplaceable. At this very moment, when we are talking about these facts, Putin is planning the next move. He and his administration know that executing all their plans now is the right thing to do, because if they hold for, say, another year, no one knows where Russia will be by that time, even whether there will be a Russia on the map or not. Ukraine's invasion is Russia's first step toward the execution of its plans. The time the invasion took place is the most crucial one because it shows the very moment Russia was thinking about its survival. It thought about nothing more than invading a country during a time when an invasion was not feasible at all. It shows how Russia is consolidating its forces and using its last chunk of power to complete all its pre-decided tasks. Many war analysts believed that in the 21st century, the invasion has become a thing of the past. But Russia has proven them wrong, and the sole reason is Russia is dying internally.